The ground trembled beneath Captain John Reynolds as he charged through the thick haze of battle. His heart pounded in sync with the rhythmic thuds of explosions around him. Alien soldiers, towering and grotesque, scattered like leaves in the wind as he approached. Encased in a sleek, advanced exoskeleton, John was a force of nature, his every movement precise and lethal. The air crackled with the energy of his plasma rifle, each shot tearing through the enemy ranks with ruthless efficiency. From a distance, Commander Vok observed the carnage with mounting horror. His species, the Vorth, prided themselves on their superior technology and military prowess, but they were no match for this human, a single man who moved with the destructive power of 1,000. Vok's elongated fingers clenched around the edge of the command console, his usually composed demeanor cracking under the weight of what he was witnessing. "Pull back! Regroup at the defensive perimeter!" Vok's voice, cold and authoritative, echoed through the comms. His eyes, black and reflective, betrayed a rare flicker of fear as he watched the remaining Vorth soldiers retreat in disarray. They had underestimated the humans, and now they were paying the price. John pushed forward, his breathing steady despite the chaos. Every step was calculated, every action deliberate. He'd fought in countless battles, but this one felt different. The alien forces were unlike anything he'd encountered before, yet they fell before him as if they were nothing. With each alien he cut down, a gnawing sensation grew in his chest, a mix of unease and dread that he couldn't shake. Amidst the wreckage, John's comm buzzed with the familiar voice of his superior, Colonel Harris. "Captain, we've got them on the run. Finish the job and secure the area." John paused, his grip tightening on the rifle. His eyes scanned the battlefield, now littered with the bodies of fallen Vorth soldiers. A few stragglers scrambled to escape, their fear palpable. He knew what he had to do, what was expected of him, but the sight of the broken and defeated enemy gave him pause. "Understood, Colonel," John replied, his voice even, but his mind raced. The mission was clear, but the unease gnawing at him had deepened. How many more would have to die before it was enough? Vok's voice cut through his thoughts as the commander addressed his remaining forces. "We cannot win this battle. Retreat and regroup. We must report this to the Council." As the Vorth forces retreated, John stood amidst the carnage, his weapon lowered. The battlefield was silent now, save for the distant hum of departing ships. The unease within him solidified into something more, a realization that this was not a victory to be celebrated. It was a warning, a harbinger of what humanity had become in the eyes of the galaxy. John turned away from the battlefield, his mind heavy with the implications of what had transpired. He had won the battle, but at what cost? As he walked back to his comrades, a single thought echoed in his mind, chilling him to the core. If this is what it takes to win, then perhaps victory isn't worth the price. The ground trembled once more as the last of the Vorth ships left the planet's surface, leaving behind a desolate and haunting silence. And in that silence, the seeds of a new conflict were sown, one that would challenge not just the galaxy, but the very soul of humanity. Commander Vok's footsteps echoed through the vast, dimly lit chamber of the Galactic Council. His heart pounded with the gravity of his report, each beat echoing the devastation he had just witnessed. As he approached the center of the circular room, he felt the weight of countless eyes upon him, representatives from every corner of the galaxy, their features a blend of curiosity, concern, and barely concealed fear. A low hum filled the chamber as Vok activated the holographic display, projecting the harrowing images of the recent battle. The sight of the lone human soldier, John Reynolds, tearing through the Vorth forces played in stark detail. The council members, each representing a different alien race, watched in stunned silence. "This, esteemed members of the council," Vok began, his voice steady but laced with underlying dread, "is the human threat we face. One soldier, with the power of an entire battalion. If humans continue to fight in our wars, the balance of power will be irrevocably shattered." The tension in the room thickened as murmurs of agreement spread among the council members. A tall, crystalline being known as High Chancellor Zara spoke first, his voice resonating like a chorus of chimes. "Commander Vok, we have long been aware of humanity's potential, but this This is unprecedented. What do you propose? Vok hesitated, his mind racing. He had spent the journey to the council deliberating over his response, but now that he was here, the enormity of the situation weighed heavily on him. I propose a complete ban on human participation in any future conflicts, Vok declared. We cannot afford to let them continue. Their involvement risks not only our sovereignty but the stability of the entire galaxy. A ripple of unease spread through the chamber. The council had faced many threats before, but the idea of banning an entire species from warfare was a decision that carried enormous implications. As the debate unfolded, Vok's thoughts drifted to the humans he had encountered, particularly John Reynolds. The humans' raw power was undeniable, yet there had been something else in his eyes during the battle. Was it guilt? Doubt? Vok couldn't shake the feeling that, despite their fearsome abilities, humans were not the unfeeling warriors many on the council believed them to be. Vok! A voice cut through his reverie. It was Arya, the envoy from the peaceful planet of Ilara, her voice soft but firm. You fought them firsthand. Do you truly believe humans cannot be reasoned with? Is there no path to peace without resorting to such drastic measures? Vok's gaze met hers, and for a moment, the tension in the room seemed to subside. He took a deep breath. I don't know, he admitted, the vulnerability in his voice surprising even himself. But what I do know is that we cannot ignore the threat they pose. If we allow them to continue fighting, there may be no galaxy left to save. The chamber fell silent as the council members absorbed Vok's words. The implications of his proposal were immense, and the decision they faced would shape the future of the galaxy. High Chancellor Zareth finally spoke, his voice echoing with authority. We will deliberate on this matter, but know this, Commander Vok, the fate of many rests on the outcome of this decision. We must proceed with caution and wisdom. As Vok bowed and exited the chamber, the weight of what was to come pressed down on him. The decision lay not only in the hands of the Council but also in the hearts of every species that called the galaxy home. And deep down, Vok couldn't help but wonder if, in their fear of humanity, they were losing sight of the very essence of what it meant to be sentient, the capacity for change, for growth, and perhaps most importantly, for understanding. Captain John Reynolds stood at the edge of the observation deck, his gaze fixed on the stars that stretched endlessly before him. The void of space, once a source of wonder and exploration, now felt like a prison, a vast expanse trapping him in the uncertainty of what was to come. The Council's decision weighed heavily on his mind, but more than that, the memories of the battlefield lingered, gnawing at his conscience. The door to the deck slid open with a soft hiss, and Colonel Harris stepped inside, his presence as imposing as ever. Captain, he greeted, his voice a blend of authority and concern. I received word that the Council is still deliberating. Whatever they decide, we need to be prepared. John nodded, though his thoughts remained distant. Prepared for what, sir? Another battle? Another slaughter? His voice carried a bitterness that surprised even him. Harris's expression tightened. You did what you had to do, Reynolds. The Vorth were a threat, still are. We can't afford to second-guess ourselves now. John turned to face his superior, the weight of his inner turmoil evident in his eyes. I'm not second-guessing our mission, Colonel. I'm questioning what we've become. I looked into their eyes, sir, those Vorth soldiers. They were terrified. They weren't just enemies. They were living beings, fighting for their survival, just like us. Harris's gaze softened, a rare glimpse of empathy showing through his hardened exterior. War isn't pretty, Captain. It never has been. But it's necessary. Our survival depends on it. John clenched his fists, the conflict within him intensifying. At what cost? If we're willing to annihilate entire species to secure our place in the galaxy, what does that make us? Are we any better than the enemies we fight? The colonel was silent for a moment, the gravity of John's words sinking in. Finally, he sighed, the sound heavy with resignation. Maybe we aren't, John. But we don't have the luxury of choosing the moral high ground. The Council will make its decision, and we'll follow orders. That's all we can do. John's shoulders slumped as the reality of their situation settled over him like a shroud. I just hope they make the right decision, he muttered, more to himself than to Harris. Before Harris could respond, the comms unit on his wrist beeped, drawing his attention. Colonel Harris, he answered, his voice returning to its usual clipped tone. The voice on the other end was urgent, and Harris's expression shifted from focus to grim in an instant. The Council has reached a decision, Harris relayed after a tense pause. We're to stand down. All human military personnel are to be recalled immediately. John's breath caught in his throat. Recalled? What does that mean? It means, Harris said, his voice tight with barely contained frustration, that the Council has decided to ban humans from participating in any further conflicts. Effective immediately. The words hung in the air, a mixture of relief and dread washing over John. They were out, no more fighting, no more battles, but the implications were staggering. What would become of humanity now, in a galaxy that viewed them as both a threat and a necessity? As John stared out into the vastness of space, the uncertainty he had felt earlier returned with renewed force. This was no victory. It was a pause, a forced withdrawal from the very stage they had been thrust onto. And in that moment he realized that their greatest battle was yet to come, not on the battlefield, but within themselves, as they grappled with the consequences of their power and the fear it instilled in others. The observation deck fell silent, save for the soft hum of the ship's systems. John's thoughts churned, the weight of the future pressing down on him. Whatever lay ahead, one thing was certain: humanity's place in the galaxy was far from secure, and the path forward was fraught with challenges they had never anticipated. Captain John Reynolds sat alone in his quarters, the soft glow of the ship's ambient lighting casting long shadows across the room. The silence was deafening, a stark contrast to the chaos that had consumed his life in recent weeks. The Council's decision to ban humans from warfare still echoed in his mind, a mixture of relief and trepidation swirling within him. His hands, once steady in the heat of battle, now trembled with the weight of an uncertain future. The door chimed softly, pulling John from his thoughts. "Come in," he called, his voice rougher than he intended. The door slid open to reveal Colonel Harris, his usual stern demeanor softened by an unspoken understanding of the burden they both carried. "Captain," Harris began, his tone uncharacteristically gentle, "we've received new orders. The Council wants us to return to Earth. They're calling it a strategic withdrawal, but we both know what it really is." "A retreat," John replied, bitterness creeping into his voice. "They're sidelining us. Making sure we can't be a threat." Harris nodded, stepping further into the room. "It's more than that, John. The Council's afraid of what we represent: uncontrolled power, unpredictability. But they're also afraid of losing us. They know we're not just soldiers. We're pioneers, explorers. We've brought something to this galaxy that no other species has: unrelenting determination, resilience, the ability to turn the tide of any battle." John looked up at Harris, searching his eyes for answers. "So what now? We go back to Earth and wait for the galaxy to forget about us? Or do we sit idle, waiting for the day they decide to eliminate us as a potential threat?" The colonel's gaze hardened, resolve settling over him like armor. "No, John. We adapt. The Council may have banned us from their wars, but they haven't stripped us of who we are. We'll go back to Earth, regroup, and find a new path forward. We're not just warriors, we're innovators. We'll prove that humanity has a place in this galaxy beyond the battlefield." John absorbed Harris's words, a flicker of hope igniting within him. "And if they come for us? If they decide we're too dangerous to be left alone? Then we'll be ready," Harris replied, a steely determination in his voice. "But I don't think it'll come to that. The galaxy's seen what we're capable of, both the good and the bad. They'll want to keep us around, but on their terms. Our job now is to show them that we can contribute in ways they've never imagined." The room fell into a thoughtful silence, the enormity of their situation hanging in the air. Finally, John stood, a newfound resolve hardening his expression. "Then let's get to work. If they won't let us fight, we'll find another way to make a difference." We'll show them that humanity's strength isn't just in our ability to destroy, but in our capacity to build, to create, to endure. Harris allowed a rare smile to touch his lips. That's the spirit, Captain. We'll forge our own path, just like we always have. As the two men exited the room, the ship hummed softly around them, a quiet reminder of the vastness of the universe outside. The future was uncertain, but for the first time since the Council's decision, John felt a sense of purpose return. Humanity's journey in the galaxy was far from over. This was merely the beginning of a new chapter, one they would write themselves. And as the ship set course for Earth, leaving the turmoil of the galactic stage behind, John knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Humanity would rise not as conquerors, but as builders, as explorers, as a species that refused to be defined by war alone. The dawn of a new era had begun.